Alright, what's going on, everybody? So I know I'm about to say something that some of you guys might not agree with, but just hear me out on it. Just hear me out. I think comedy is dead. Or at the very least, it's on life support. I know that's probably a very extreme statement to make, and I understand that kind of, when it comes to humor, it's a very subjective thing when it comes to comedy. I mean, I might not like certain types of comedy, while you might like certain types of comedy. Like, some people like dark comedy, some people like stuff that's crass and crude and stuff like that. But for me, it's just been something that's been bugging me for a while that I wanted to do a video on. Where are all the good comedy movies and sitcoms? I mean, in the early 2000s, in the 1990s, with like the TV shows, man, we had so much. In preparation for this video, I was just going through all the shows that we had. And this isn't a complete list, mind you, but it's crazy. When you compare the shows that we got back then, and even later on in like the early 2000s, getting up to this decade, it is ridiculous. When it comes to black comedies, when it comes to black sitcoms, alright? We had Martin, we had In Living Color, we had Malcolm and Eddie, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Wayne Brothers, and even the Jamie Foxx show. I didn't like that too much, but in comparison to what we have now, I take it. Family Matters, and even A Different World. I take A Different World over a lot of the crap that we're getting now. And as far as white comedies, as far as white sitcoms, we got Seinfeld, Full House. It wasn't the best show in the world, I'll admit, but it had its charm. And I'm not talking about whatever abomination or Netflix put out, that sequel, Fuller House. I'm talking about original OG Full House. Scrubs, and Arrested Development. Arrested Development, that started out strong. Y'all fell off when it came to the comedies. Y'all had Seinfeld, y'all had Arrested Development, y'all had Scrubs. I love these shows. But Arrested Development, that fell off as soon as, man, that thing, when it went to Netflix, I want to say maybe even before then, but I want to say when it got to Netflix, just fell off. But of course, nowadays they had to add all this gay stuff in it and all this other nonsense. It was just trash, man. Comedies now, it's not the same. It is not the same. I can't really remember the last time we've had a really great sitcom on TV, man. A truly great sitcom for everybody, man. And just across the board. I think the last great sitcom, and especially when we're talking about black sitcoms, alright? I think the last great black sitcom would be Everybody Hates Chris. I am so mad I did not know about this show when it first came out. I caught that show real late. I caught that show when it got canceled. I caught that show in 2009. And there's a reason why this show is still being shown in on a lot of networks. I don't know what happened after 2009. It feels like, and I can't tell you what year or what day I feel like comedy kind of died in general when it comes to entertainment and stuff. I can't tell you. Maybe it was like somewhere after 2010, because here's the thing. So like nowadays, so far, I want to say like over the past few years, I've tried a lot of comedies that have started coming on television and stuff like that. The ones that kind of stuck out to me, Carmichael Show, that a lot of people didn't watch. That show, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but in comparison to all the other shows that are coming out now, in comparison to its contemporaries, it was just above. If you have not watched the Carmichael Show, y'all need to do yourselves a favor and watch that. But that got canceled. And then Rel. I know some of you guys might know who Rel is, the comedian. Rel, this show, he was trying to be like Martin. There's no way to kind of tiptoe around it. He was trying to be like Martin. He was trying to, play these different characters and stuff. And when he did that, it didn't really work. But I will say this, that show had moments. It had moments where it had me dying. But, that show was very short-lived. I think Carmichael Show had like 2 seasons. And then Rel, who was also on the Carmichael Show, Rel's show, I think it lasted for only like a season, and then that got canceled. And then Blackish. Blackish is like the last man standing, because there was a lot of other shows that came out recently when we're just talking about sitcoms and stuff. There was that show Neighbors, or The Neighbors or something like that. Cedric the Entertainer, he plays in that. And that show is bad. It's terrible, but I'll say that it wasn't offensive. It wasn't something that, you know, it's something that I could just sit there and watch, but it wasn't something that was truly great. It wasn't something that was like really, really funny. It's very tame, very tame. Like, its best material was like in the first 2 episodes, and even then it wasn't the greatest. But getting back to Blackish though, because I really want to talk about this. Blackish, that show is probably the best thing that we got now, and it's sad because it's not the greatest thing in the world. Anthony Anderson is like the lifeblood of that show. I'll say this because one reason why I wanted to do a video on this, because I would say like over the past month or whatever, I've talked to my brother about this. Like, we were driving to a movie. We were just, I don't know how we started talking about this. Well, we started talking about comedies and stuff. And then I was also talking to my friend about this. It's like, we don't get great comedy movies anymore. We don't get great comedy TV shows. And like, for some reason, I stepped in a room one day. I think my mother was watching Blackish or whatever. And I don't know how the conversation came up or whatever. But basically, I feel like Blackish, and this is what I said something of the effect that Blackish is a product of its time. It's not timeless. And I think that's the difference between a lot of these comedies that we have now versus what we had back then. It's not timeless. It's a product of its time. And I guess you could say a lot of things are a product of its time. But what I mean by that is that sitcoms nowadays, like in general, I would say, they feel very sterilized. They feel very corporate. They lack the heart. They aren't as clever. The writing isn't as good. The writing for a lot of these series, they feel very stunted. And that could be because of PC culture. It could be because of this political climate. It could be because of just a lot of people are just so afraid to kind of push that bar. And I'll say this. I don't think that comedy shows and comedy movies will ever be, I don't think they will ever be as good as they once were. They will never be as good as they once were. I think it's just I think it's the time that we're in now. I really think it is, because even with Blackish, like, it has its moments, but the best thing about Blackish, it isn't those kids. It ain't those kids. It never was those kids. The best part about Blackish, the best part in my opinion, is when Anthony Anderson's character Dre, he goes into work. He goes into the office, and then he's talking to his white co-workers about problems he's having dealing with his family. That is the best part of this show. Honestly, they should just do a spin-off of just him working at the office. Not this crap. I don't know what they're doing with this spin-off called Mix-ish. They're doing a spin-off called Mix-ish based off of the character Rainbow, which is Dre's wife in the show. And I'm like, who's asking for this crap? Same thing with the show Grownish. It's like you're doing these spin-offs, these unnecessary spin-offs with these uninteresting characters. And these shows are trash. And as far as Blackish goes, like I said, it's the best thing that we've had right now. But that's not saying much, because it's not even that great. It really ain't. It has its moments. And as far as movies goes, man, I feel like movies has even gotten worse. In my opinion, we haven't had a great black movie since 2010 with Death at a Funeral. And even then, Death at a Funeral, like, if you watch it a third time or even a second time, like on repeat viewings, it isn't as good and it isn't as funny. Cause it's like a lot of that stuff, it isn't as funny the second time you see it or whatever. But like, it seems like all we get now is Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish. We get that loud, annoying guy and the ghetto chick who plays the ghetto chick and everything, right? And with Kevin Hart, I feel like a lot of things killed comedy shows and comedy movies in general. I feel like comedy shows, as far as like comedy sitcoms, I feel like Tyler Perry is to blame for a lot of this stuff. Because y'all remember his Tyler Perry comedy shows, House of Pain and Meet the Browns, and then he kept doing all these other spin-offs and crap. Crap was corny. I swear all his shows are on a laugh track, and I swear a lot of this stuff that we're seeing now, I swear there's a laugh track. Like Big Bang Theory. This crap ain't funny. A lot of this stuff, like I said, a lot of this stuff is very sterilized, very corporate. A lot of stuff ain't funny. Like, these writers, they're not as good, man. They're not as good. I don't know what happened. But as far as movies goes, man, like, I can't remember the last time I was just busting out laughing in a comedy movie, in a straight up comedy movie. I was just thinking about that the other day. It's like, when was the last time I wanted to go see a comedy movie? When's the last time there was like a truly great comedy movie? Like, the last few comedy movies that I've seen that I actually went out to theaters and actually saw, I want to say like I saw some of the Kevin Hart movies, like the one he did with Ice Cube, Ride Along, and then Ride Along 2, I saw that at the house. He did a few other movies, but like Kevin Hart's everywhere. He's oversaturated himself, and in my opinion, and I'll get to talking about Kevin Hart later, in like just comedy in terms of stand-up comedy, but don't really have that many good comedy movies anymore. Like as far as like movies that are mostly, you know, with white people or whatever, I mean, y'all fell off. Y'all fell off. Hangover. I'll say this. So a lot of movies nowadays, and this is another problem I have, a lot of this stuff relies on shock value. It either relies on shock value being lewd and crass. Like, this crap ain't funny. It ain't funny. Like Hangover, Superbad. I don't care what anybody says. Superbad is terrible. It's a terrible movie. 40-year-old version. I never thought that crap was funny. But that, like those movies, Neighbors. Neighbors is definitely another movie that just, it relies on shock value being crude and crass. Horrible Bosses. Easy A. I know there's a movie out now that they said is like super bad. I think it's called Booksmart or whatever. That looks stupid. Like, these movies are terrible. But the good movies that feature mostly white people or whatever, like good white movies, we got Ace Ventura. We had Dumber and Dumber, man. That still holds up. Waterboy, Mask, Liar Liar, Big Daddy, Groundhog Day. I guess you would count Groundhog Day. Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights. Like I said, it isn't a extensive list, but it just hasn't been good since. And like, as far as good black movies go, I mean, we had so many when I was looking this up. Even our lower tier movies, like White Chicks, for instance. Even our lower tier movies, like White Chicks, and even Norbit. Like, I caught my dad watching Norbit the other day. And Norbit, I'll say Norbit is funnier than a lot of other movies. I'd argue it's better than a lot of black comedies coming out today. Undercover Brother, that movie is amazing. Man, that movie would get attacked nowadays. They would get attacked for making that movie nowadays. Mo Money, Major Payne, House Party, Rush Hour, Scary Movie, Scream. Even though the Scary Movie franchise, that went to crap. Nutty Professor, Bad Boys, Don't Be a Menace, Friday, even though like the Friday movies kind of declined, but they're still better than what we get now. Like, in general, I would say that the best movie, one of the best comedy movies in general, whether it be black, white, whatever, Tropic Thunder. And that was back in 2008. We haven't gotten these good, like, where are these good movies? Where are these good movies? Where are these good TV shows? But instead, now we get crap like Night School, Girls Trip. We don't get those good movies no more, man. We don't get the good movies. And then, as far as stand-up goes, man, because I feel like stand-up is taking a hit. Like, I used to watch a lot of stand-up. But nowadays, I don't watch any at all, because a lot of it, I feel like even as far as like black comedians, I feel like we've kind of ran our course with a lot of this stuff, because they all like to tackle the same kind of subject matter. I won't say all of them, but a lot of the routines, it's very samey. It's very formulaic. Chris Rock, like the last stand-up that he did on Netflix, that crap it wasn't terrible, but it was like, yeah, dude, you fell off. In comparison to his other stand-up, yeah, that wasn't very good. Dave Chappelle and Cat Williams are like the last good ones. I mean, Cat Williams will always be crazy. He will always be crazy. Dave Chappelle, they stay, man, these SJWs, these the PC police, the fun police, they hate this man. I swear they hate this man, because they don't want him talking nothing about the gay people or whatever. He said something about gay people and something, and then, like, you know, people went crazy. But so earlier I also mentioned Kevin Hart, and I'll just say this about him. He's very, like I said, very oversaturated. He's in everything now, and I would say he peaked early on in his career. Like, he's no longer funny. Like, it seemed like the more Hollywood he got, the less funnier he got. Like, I want to say he peaked probably like somewhere between 2008 and 2010. And I would say he does the same routines over and over now. It's just a bunch of short jokes. And then when it comes to just his acting, all he does is just a bunch of screaming and stuff. He's no longer funny. He was funnier like early on in his career, but he's not good anymore. I mean, in terms of modern day black comedians, I would say that he's probably the biggest, or one of the biggest. Like I said, he's in everything now, and honestly, I feel like the last ones left, like I said, Dave Chappelle, Cat Williams. As far as like the stand-up goes, like, that's not even hitting on anything nowadays. It's like, comedy is dead. It's dying. It's on life support. And you know what the modern day comedies are now? And it hit me the other day also. The modern day comedies are Marvel movies, are superhero movies. Those are the only movies, to me, that have had me dying. I've laughed more in Iron Man 3 and like Iron Man 3, the Avengers movies, like the last 2 Avengers movies, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I've laughed more in those movies, like Thor Ragnarok. I've laughed more in those movies than I ever have in a lot of these comedies that have came out recently or the past few years. That is insane, given the fact that those movies are mostly supposed to be action, adventure, sci-fi, superhero movies. It's terrible. It's a shame when you look at the movies that we've had in the past compared to what we had now, and the TV shows too. And if you don't believe me, do it yourself. Do some research. Look at the movies that we had in the past. Look at the TV shows that we've had in the past and compare them. Because with something like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, very funny show, very classic show. Compare that to the stuff that we see in Blackish. Like, those shows can be funny. But they can also tackle real life issues, and issues that are even relevant to our time. Like that episode where Will and Colton, they get stopped by the cops. That's still relevant to our time. That is still relevant to our time. There's so much that they tackled back then, and they were still able. They were able to have those serious moments and serious subplots and stuff, and still keep you laughing. It's just the writing. The writing is just terrible now. But yeah, man, I ranted on long enough. Hope y'all enjoyed, and let me know what you guys think. I'm out of here. Peace.